A big thank you to Jero for sponsoring today's video on Patreon. Ruric Thar the Unbowed versus Sovereign Okinec Ahau, Sheoldred, and Zhulodok. That's a slow hand. We've got plenty of dorks and stuff, so I'm going to try and get into some of those. Alright, a 2-lander instead. Yeah, I'm not really happy with this one either. We kind of need to get into 2 lands in order to start doing something. A dork and a land could do it. I mean, we're too reliant on the top deck there. I'm going to have to go down a card, unfortunately. Alright, that's not great either, but we'll just try this. Let's see the back of a Boseiju there, I think. Draw into a Manglehorn. The only card of note is a Field of Ruin over here. A rare shock on turn 1 from a Stomping Ground allows us into an untapped land for Fyndhorn Elves. So now if we see something like a Sol Ring or whatever, we could blow it up on turn 2. Don't really like playing Dorks in Commander because they're too fragile to board wipes, which are aplenty in this format, but it is a creature-based deck. We've got 57 creatures in this list, because obviously Ruric Thar doesn't like to see non-creatures, so we've got a grand total of 6 non-land, non-creature spells in this list. Tyrite Sanctum for the Eldrazi player. A Cabal Stronghold with only 1 basic swamp in play, but we do see likely a turn 2 Sheoldred, thanks to Dark Ritual. And there it is. Always miss that one. Search for Tomorrow was put into exile by the Sovereign Okinec Ahau player, so next turn we'll get a land off that. Definitely no spells from the Celestia player this time. We lose our first 2 life to Sheoldred, draw into a Blasphemous Act, which we might want to get down before Ruric Thar. Again, it would be difficult to lose out on a dork though. Unfortunately don't have anything to do with Manglehorn. We could play it out and make rocks come into play tapped. Maybe do that on turn 4 because we're not going to have anything else to play next turn. If we don't see any rocks to destroy, I might just play this out anyway, just for the sake of making future Arcane Signets and the like come into play tapped. I dare say we might see some of that from Zhulodok. Transmogrifying 1 for Zhulodok, that'll do. 4/5 Death Toucher turns in towards the Eldrazi player, so hopefully us destroying his wand will not have him scoop early on us. Search for Tomorrow allows our opponent to grab a land. Just realised it's Terax actually, friend of the channel. Didn't see the username previously. So on turn 3 has 4 mana available. Now then, do we go after Sol Ring or the Transmogrifying Wand? I think the wand can deal with things like Sheoldred, so probably best to leave that in play over the Sol Ring. And Terax tends to play pretty aggro decks, so especially when he can refill his hand with something like Tribute to the World Tree, it's probably best to hurt his mana some. So, okay, drawing to Beast Within, lose 2 further life from Sheoldred. I think we'll go for Castle Garenbrig and play ourselves a Manglehorn. Strangely, of all the cards that we could be top decking into, we're getting into our very few non-creature spells that are in the list. But hopefully next turn we'll still have Fyndhorn Elves in play. It's too early for a board wipe, I think. We'll be able to go Cavern of Souls into the Silverback Elder. See the first basics over here, a Wastes. He has played Arch of Arazka as well. And Transmogrifying Wand, as we thought, does go onto the Sheoldred, so replaces that with an Ox token. Sheoldred is missing lands over here, so has been very reliant on that Dark Ritual and is now a million miles away from replaying it again. Does go into the command zone, so no reanimation in hand. The Ox punishes the Eldrazi player, swinging into the left. Takes him down to 3/4 of his life total. The Cat Noble into play for the first time, and we'll draw a card here. Now what we could do is go for the Silverback Elder here, and then if we don't get to do anything else next turn, alright, a land might change things. I'm just thinking we could go Beast Within onto this before it gets out of hand and pay the ward, but let's drop the Forest. I think Silverback Elder, maybe get a trigger with it. It might be that the Eldrazi player buys time and blows up our Silverback. I don't think that this commander is going to get the respect it deserves because it's not very well known. So I don't think Zhulodok's going to blow it up. He's going to blow up a much more obvious threat like this, but we'll give him the chance. Especially when it destroys artifacts. I just think that Zhulodok may well be looking to go after it. Doesn't trigger on its own entry, unfortunately, but it is a 5/7 body that can hopefully block the Okinec. Maybe he wants his artifacts to come into play untapped, so he'll destroy Manglehorn instead. But again, if we hold the elf in play next turn, then we'll be able to tap this down for an additional mana. We've got 6 mana next turn now, thanks to that land for Ruric Thar, so it might be that we get that into play next turn. Noteworthy Sheoldred had to discard hand size, peer into the abyss. Mystic Forge, and still has the mana held up for the wand. Can only do the wand at sorcery speed, so yeah, does what we thought he was going to do, and blows up the Elder, forcing him to go down to his final counter at least. Looks like he's decided to exile the top card of his library with the Mystic Forge, although I'm not seeing anything in exile. Of course it comes into play tapped with the Manglehorn, doesn't it? Seems as though there's still no land for Sheoldred. He kept this pretty poor hand based on the fact that he had a Dark Ritual apparently. Windmill slamming your commander into play immediately as soon as you can isn't necessarily the best idea. The Ox, I think, the client wouldn't show me, I think he dealt some more damage to Zhulodok. Looks as though Swords to Plowshares is not being held up by the Celestia player, instead goes for Hunter's Prowess. We'll see if they start to pay attention to Okinec Ahau after this. +3/+3 trample, and going to draw a bunch of cards without Sheoldred in play. So this is now a 6/7 commander and deals damage to the Eldrazi player, so that will encourage him to use the wand on the commander at least. So swings in, gets 3+ counters, it is now a 9/10. 5 cards in hand, jumps up to 14, manages to make a land for the turn. So could have something like Tamiyo Safekeeping, a means of keeping his commander in play. Going to be too late to get rid of this with Blasphemous Act by the time we're casting it, I think. It's just a case of, does our opponent do the right thing and use the wand on that commander over there, because that dictates whether or not we spend a turn with Beast Within. Might just have to play our commander and take the damage to casting this. Farhaven Elf, too late, but we can play it later on maybe. Let's go for Cavern of Souls, and we'll just say Ogre. Or actually, our commander's a warrior. We've got more chance of seeing warriors in the deck than ogres. I can't remember what creature types we've got. So now let's go Ruric Thar and hope that Sheoldred isn't holding up spot removal. Discarded on the previous turn, Psychosis Crawler by the way. Yeah, and Sheoldred doing something straight away. Being really preemptive there. He could have held on to his own terror. He's taken damage to do that, but there's still this. Players just have real itchy trigger fingers and they just do stuff as soon as they can. So, as usual with Ruric Thar, it goes down immediately. But our opponent had all the time in the world to just hold on to that, and he should have done during the Zhulodok player's turn. But we're still hopeful that the wand is going to go after the Sovereign Okinec Ahau. Hopefully he remembers the ward on that. Love the classic artwork on this one. Alright, yeah, he's now showing Okinec Ahau the respect it deserves, so we'll see if he does have a means of protecting it, and does pay the ward. I think he's played a land for the turn. It was a waste last turn, and a waste on this turn also. So all of us have an Ox token. This one will get plus counters thanks to the tribute to the World Tree, so it's actually a 4/6. If we get into another land next turn, we can afford Ruric Thar again thanks to the additional mana from Castle Garenbrig. So yeah, it's either that or we play the Farhaven Elf next turn. Our opponent's finally got into another land, so Black Market Connections might have been what he was hoping for with the opening hand. Props to my opponent for playing it out. He has made a difference in the game with cards like Terror and forcing our opponents to point removal at his commander. Now Black Market Connections could definitely get him back into it. 2/4 goes into the left again because he doesn't intend on blocking with that apparently. Mirari's Wake is worthy of a Beast Within, I think. And our opponent holds up 4 mana, so could have swords or something for the Ruric Thar. It all depends on if we get a land off the top deck here. Okay, Aura and Frostfang could be interesting. Let's see. We'd tap down all our lands, get 6 mana from this. 7 still means that we can only go Aura and Frostfang and not Farhaven Elf, so I'd be tempted to just go for this and swing in this turn, to be honest. So let's see if we can land some damage with Aura and Frostfang in tow. Go straight down the middle. And they do gain Death Touch, but we need the snake in play whilst we're hitting our opponent. And we do manage to land that, so drawing 3 cards. And clearing 3 cards off the top that are not lands, so that feels bad, but At least we're closer to a land here. Closer than we were before. Mystic Forge exiles a Wastes off the top. Matter Reshaper, I think, is the first creature we see from this guy. When it dies, reveal cards off the top of your library. Put a permanent mana value 3 or less onto the battlefield from it. Black Market Connections triggering for the first time. Our opponent going to go to at least 30 life. Decided to draw a card. The treasure token does come into play tapped, so Manglehorn, hopefully slowing our opponent down a little bit. Does manage to make a swamp. And throws out a Phyrexian Arena as well. Another one that we don't see too much of. And still aggressively swinging in with the Ox. That frees up an attack for us next turn to draw some more cards. Decides to block with the Eldrazi and try his luck. He actually knows what's on top, thanks to the Mystic Forge, so can make an educated decision here. And decides to get himself a free land, the Mage Ring Network. So with all this mana available and a full grip, we'll see what the Celestia player can do. First off is Storm the Seed Core. Distribute 4+ counters. Creatures you control gain Vigilance and Trample. So that is now a Vigilance Trample 9/11. Then last March of the Ents, going to draw a whole lot of cards and dump a bunch of creatures into play. So we might be getting towards board wipe territory. Only gets 2 creatures out though, a Colonian Hydra and an Elvish Mystic. Lightning Greaves probably going to go onto the Colonian Hydra. That doesn't feel good. That puts the Ox out of range of our Blasphemous Act, annoyingly. The 5/5 goes at the black player, and as I thought, the 9/11 comes in at us. So it triggers the Colonian Hydra, doubling up plus counters. So there we see a 15/17 and a 9/9. So we're just going to have to take nearly half of our life total here. Lightning Greaves then onto the Dork in order to be able to play another spell, I'm assuming. Alright, see what we can do here. Turn 7 and still only 5 lands. We do get into one there at least. Maybe we can draw into Guy's Cradle or something. It might be too late by the time we've already swung in though. Let's see if our opponent wants to... We're projecting a board wipe here is the problem, but let's see if Terrax wants to make any blocks. He might want to get rid of Auron Frostfang and be willing to block in order to do it. Could still have Heroic Intervention or Teferi's Protection held up. He's drawing that many cards. Does decide to block our Snake with the Dork, as I thought he might. So those two will trade each other, but we'll get a hit in for 4 damage at least. Hit with 2 creatures, draw 2 cards. That does mean he's not holding up Teferi's Protection though. Or Clever Concealment. So it could be Heroic Intervention. Nikia isn't the worst after a board wipe. Pathbreaker Ibex is one of the reasons I didn't mind throwing in Dorks into the deck as much. But at the end of the day, we're a creature deck that wants to go into the red zone, so we're automatically going to be a bit too slow for the Magic Online meta, I think. So drop Command Tower. Blasphemous Act is going to cost 3 mana, leaving us with 4. And unfortunately this doesn't deal with the Ox token. We're just going to have to, as much as I'd like to play Farhaven Elf or the Fanatic, I think it's just going to have to be Beast Within that we hold up, throw down Uvenwild Tracker, and hopefully we'll be able to get rid of the Mirari's Wake, but unfortunately it might just have to be a token. Maybe us getting rid of our Manglehorn will speed up the other 2 players to a point where they can help deal with the Sovereign Okinec Ahau deck as well. Might still have Heroic Intervention, he might not have been bothered about losing the creatures, just eager to protect his Mirari's Wake, so could still have it. It's going to have to be a team effort to deal with him here, I think. Thran Dynamo comes in untapped, and is followed by Zhulodok, so just setting up, not dealing with anything on the board over there unfortunately. Phyrexian Arena triggering for the first time to draw the black player a card. Draws during the draw step and then maybe again during the main phase with Black Market Connections. Decides to go to 8 cards in hand, gets another treasure, 15 life at the moment. Is he just going to slam down his commander again? No, it's Bolas's Citadel. We'll see how much he can get done here. Demonic Tutor. Is he just going to combo off immediately? Although this does go into hand, so he's not going to be able to cast whatever he tutors into. He'll need a bit of luck with the shuffle. I'm not sure if he played a land this turn either. I don't think he has, so he's got a land to play off the top, which can help with the Citadel. Plays Bloodchief Ascension off the top. Not sure he'll survive long enough to make that relevant. Plays a Strip Mine. Plays Sol Ring from his hand with the Strip Mine. A Sanguine Bond, that is the one where if you gain life, target opponent loses that much. Doesn't have a means of gaining life at the moment, even though he's desperate for it. So it turns out, as much as I would love to blow up the double mana, we're going to have to go after the Ox, I think. And it might be worth doing it during the upkeep so that he's got one fewer non-summoning sick creatures. If we do it during the upkeep, he'll get a summoning sick beast. But he'll also have untapped his mana, meaning he can hold up more protection. As it stands now, he'll only be able to give one creature haste with Lightning Greaves, but I'm just going to do it here. Might be relevant, it might not be. All the interaction played in the early game, as is typical in a game of Commander. Another card drawn with this entering, thanks to the Anthem effect with Mirari's Wake. So Sovereign re-entering from the command zone again. Casting Flowering of the White Tree will give his commander +2/+1 and ward 1. Everything else +1/+1. So it might be relevant after all that this doesn't have Summoning Sickness anymore. Requisition Raid. Not sure how he's spreed that, but a plus counter on each creature a target player controls. He might have just done it for 2 mana. Yeah, it doesn't look like he blew anything up, so plus counter on each creature makes a 7/7 and a 6/6. And that's a really good one. A Season of Gathering, a plus counter, Vigilance and Trample on your creatures, destroy all artifacts or enchantments, and draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst creatures you control. So he's got 6 cards in hand at the moment, and just decided to pile on plus counters, I think. So a 10/10 Trample Vigilance and an 8/8. So apparently should have done this thing during the upkeep so that it would have had the Summoning Sickness. I'm assuming the black player is going to go down here, and I appreciate him actually taking some damage because it does change the outcome of the game. Alright, we don't take any damage, thankfully. So it's the commander swinging in at the Eldrazi player. So that is -10 life and 22 commander damage. And it now turns into an unlikely 1v1. Use Ram Through in order to destroy our Ulvenwald tracker and push damage through to us. And the mana just has not been flowing this game. We continue to not draw into lands. So we'll just say GG to our opponent and leave it there. No point playing it out from here. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's a mana heavy deck and we've got copious amounts of mana in the list. But just need to actually draw into it. Commander's a much faster format than it always used to be, so there's no forgiveness for not drawing into your cards at the correct time. Unfortunately saw too much aggressive interaction too early in the game, and commanders like Sovereign, Okinec Ahau don't have a threatening enough reputation for people to be automatically scared of them from turn 0. I've noticed this with my Wilhelt deck that I've been running recently, because it doesn't have a reputation for being incredibly powerful and being able to combo off out of nowhere. People don't tend to focus in on it straight away, which is handy for you as the player. But if you have an opponent like that, it can be very difficult because your other opponents aren't focused in on necessarily who they should be focused in at. But them's the breaks. It was well played, and hopefully you all got some enjoyment from it. I think I'll try another Ruric Thar game because we never get to see it stick in play, unfortunately, so I'll try again and hopefully see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.